could contain traces of irony, sarcasm, satire, parody, mockery, banter, caricature, and nuts. The opinions expressed are almost certainly not shared by self-appointed officious dictatorial wowsers. If you are dangerously irony deficient or allergic to mockery of the self-important and corrupt, then get a life.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the latest episode of the Environmental as Anything podcast, the show where we try to serve you up as much news, analysis and interviews on the state of all life here on Mother Earth as we can. I'm Sean O'Shannessy and it's a great pleasure to have your company here with me today. Thank you for tuning in.
And thanks also, of course, to the Bundjalung Nation, on whose land we are listening to this show today here in the north coast of New South Wales. I live, work and play quite a bit on the lands of the Widjabul people, and who are part of the Bundjalung Nation. And, of course, it is with deepest respects to elders past, present and emerging that I say thank you for your tolerance and your patience while we attempt to address some of the awful crises that have been inflicted upon this country of yours by the colonialism and capitalism. And we're doing our best to try to reverse and redress some of those issues. And, of course, respects to elders past, present and emerging. This is stolen land and has never been ceded. It will always remain the property of the Bundjalung Nation. We have a huge show lined up for you today. Oh, so much to come. I'm really excited later in the show to be talking to John Shipton, who is, of course, the father of and one of the great advocates for Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. The movement to free Julian Assange is gaining momentum around the world. There is a growing chorus of voices for justice for Julian Assange, and of course, John Shipton is one of those leading voices in that movement. And I'm very glad to have him on the show later on today. He's promoting, of course, the events which are coming up next week. I think it's the 12th of this month. I think that's the Thursday. There is a film night and some talks happening at the Star Court Theatre, and of course we'll talk about that with John Shipton as well when he's on air.
Before that, we'll be going to Western Australia, where the WA police have served the ABC with an order to hand over all footage captured by Four Corners for an investigation set to air this Monday, October the 9th, about the crackdown on peaceful climate protests by the WA government and its terrorist police at Woodside's behest. And it's understood the ABC may be preparing to comply with this order. I'm very happy to have to speak to us on the show Tahlia Stolanski, who is a campaigner for the Disrupt Burrup Hub movement over there in WA, who are working hard to prevent this climate bomb from going off. She will give us the story on the restraint of their freedom of association and speech there in WA and what exactly it is that Woodside are up to there with the WA government. But first up in the show, be very proud to be able to play an interview by Michelle Michaels from the Heartlands program on Bay FM, where she speaks to filmmaker Rachel Perkins about the upcoming yes vote for the referendum and Rachel's father, Charles Perkins. So that's a great way to lead off the show where we're saying yes for success.
Well, of course, this week is the week of the referendum. There's the yes vote. Referendum is on this week, and of course, vote yes for success. That's what I'm saying to everyone. So we'll be listening to a couple of bits and pieces that I've collected online about the Voice referendum. I've had some awful. I've had a lot. The reason I was so flustered today was because I came under attack from somebody who was promoting, fascist, racist propaganda, putting it to me that I should listen to this dribbling garbage from some drunk on the streets in Melbourne standing outside a pizza shop and raving moronically about the lies that he was trotting out about the Voice referendum. It is disturbing and disruptive and upsetting, saddening that Australians could be fooled by this pathetic tissue of lies that have been trotted out by the No campaign. Not every one who is voting no is a racist, but if you want to find the racists, they're all voting no. You can guarantee it. So it's not the voters who are really the problem. The voters are confused by some very sophisticated and very, very well-financed lies that are being trotted about by the No campaign. So I'm not in a good mood about that today. I'm hopeful that there's an upsurge in support for doing the right thing and giving a voice to the voiceless in Australia, and giving our the sovereign people of this land their due, and hearing them when they talk to us about their perspective on how we should manage their affairs. Of course, there are lots of different ways in which that's an urgency, and there's lots of good reasons why that's an important thing. But we'll be talking, but just a few of the facts, trying to trot out, get some of the facts. So I'll play some of that for you very soon. There's a great presentation the lady's done just on the actual proposal for this referendum. There's so much being said, so much dishonest misinformation being spread about the proposal, but the proposal itself is actually very brief. You can, in less than 2 minutes, get an excellent summary of it. It is not unclear in any way whatsoever, and it poses zero threat to the constitutional stability of Australia, and it poses zero threat to the integrity of the process for treaty and sovereignty for our First Nations people. So really, there is no campaign. There is a highly, very well funded but very poorly supported campaign for continuing the genocide which has been practiced against First Nations people here in this country. So I'm definitely standing against that campaign for genocide and standing up for yes. Say yes for success. That's what I say.
Respect to the Bundjalung Nation. Bay FM 99.9.
Here with Michelle Michaels, and we're on Heartland's slot today. Rachel Perkins is in the studios. Hello, Rachel. How are you?
I'm so happy to be here on Bundjalung country. Thanks for having me.
You'll come to speak this afternoon at the event with Kerry O'Brien and Delta Cade, community representative for the Arakwal Bundjalung Nation people here.
I'm travelling around really to anyone who'll invite me and have me, and just unpacking the voice for people so that they have some of the facts, because the referendum is in 29 days. So I'm just trying to share information that I've learnt over the last 8 years about what it means, particularly for Indigenous people, but also for our fellow Australians. So, yeah, just having conversations around the country, which is an amazing thing to do. I've never done this before, really, because I'm a filmmaker, and I'm finding it so great. Having conversations with people I would never talk to normally or never meet. It's been wonderful.
You're a very well-known, very well-regarded filmmaker. Can you give us a little bit of his 25 to 30 years?
Yeah, no, I'm getting seasoned. I don't think I'm definitely not elder status yet, but one might say seasoned. So, yeah, I've been making films since I was 18. I'm Aranda, and Kalkadoon, and German and Irish as well, but back in Alice Springs in Aranda country, I got a traineeship in 1988, and I've been making films ever since. So my recent work is The Australian Wars. It's a documentary series on SBS, but I also did First Australians, and lots of drama: Jasper Jones, Brand New Day, Total Control, Mystery Road, Redfern Now, Radiance, Mabo, and some other things I've probably forgotten along the way.
That's amazing. That's really a great body of work, and some of the most popular TV too.
Yeah.
It's not.
I know, that's right. I mean, when we were literally growing up making films, no one thought that anyone would want to watch our work. But they just thought like, there was a saying, blacks don't rape, mate, and so no one had these expectations for us. We proved them wrong, which was so satisfying. So every time we get a Logie, an award, like we got most popular television show for the first series of Mystery Road, smashed through the glass ceiling, but I suppose because we had such low expectations around us, the win is even more sweet, the success, because we proved them wrong.
It's just amazing. I've got a little clip here which I'd love to share with the beautiful listeners, which is a bit of a bio. This is from NAIDOC Week, so let's just have a listen.
My name is Perkins, and I'm from the Arundel and Kalkadoon Nations. I first began as a filmmaker back in 1988 here in Alice Springs. I got a traineeship. Freda Glynn was running the Central Australian Aboriginal Media Association, and I became a trainee in the video unit.
You've got a lot to talk about, and you're amazing. Look,
I don't want to be a big noter. No one likes a big noter.
Time to be making films.
Okay. We are here to talk about the Yes vote, because you've got your Yes T-shirt happening there. We've got some other ladies here with us. Courtney, we've got beautiful Jess Hitchcock. She's got her guitar. She's going to play live, which we're so excited about. So we're here to talk about this issue, which is, like I said, very divisive in Byron. I think there's a lot of misinformation. The government's done raising awareness campaigns, but it doesn't always reach the people that it needs to reach. And that's why we've got people like yourself.
We haven't had a referendum since, 1999. So, Jess, you haven't lived through a referendum, right? So
yeah, well, I was 8.
You were so
I didn't get to vote.
Voted. That's right. And so there's a whole lot of people who've never been involved in a referendum for a start, and then who understands constitutional reform. Before I started volunteering on this, I think 8 years ago, I never read the Constitution. I didn't really know how it worked. I didn't really care less, actually. And it's only been through being around people and learning from others that I've gained an understanding. But yeah, the average person, they just leave that to the politicians, right? But this year, very unusually, we're having a referendum, and these things are like Halley's Comet. So that's why I'm putting all my efforts into talking to people about it, because it is a rare opportunity for the Australian people to really decide what sort of nation they want.
Absolutely. And you've been involved in this issue for quite a while. It's not so. Where did you start? What brought you to it?
Well, in a way, I was sort of born into it, right?
True.
Because my family...
Tell us about your dad, too. Charlie's
my dad's Charlie, so I'm Charlie Perkins.
So famous. And your sister, Hetty. But talk a bit about your dad, because he was OAM, Order of Australia.
Oh, yeah. No,
and all of his history, huge history.
Don't worry too much about the trinkets, but some people call them.
Back, yeah.
But... he was involved, from the 60s, really, in social justice and rights issues, and dedicated his entire life to it. Born in a native institution, as it was called, in Alice Springs, and grew up experiencing segregation and everything that comes with that, and so always had a fire in his belly, he used to describe it, and he was never happy with the status quo for his people or the country, so he pushed pushed his whole life.
What were some of his achievements for Aboriginal people, from his social activism?
I think self-determination, broadly speaking, because he led the freedom rides in 1965, which he was probably, that brought him to national prominence, but he was the great believer in self-determination, which basically means Indigenous people deciding and leading their own destiny and being in charge of their own business. And so he was very much a part of that sort of, I suppose you call it Black Power, but self-determination movement that was sweeping across Africa and the United States in the 1960s, and really then in the 70s really accelerated with Indigenous people around the world claiming rights out of the process of colonisation, whether it be land rights, rights to healthcare, housing, education. So that sort of grassroots non-government organisations being established, healthcare centres, legal services. And for me, as I was a beneficiary of an Aboriginal media service, which is where I got my first traineeship. So he sort of came through and led in many ways the establishment of non-government organisations, Aboriginal organisations across the country, as well as the establishment of Indigenous investment companies that we now see, have a lot of community assets, buying investment properties for Indigenous communities, the land rights movement. He was involved in every sort of legislation, fighting for legislation, land rights legislation in Queensland. He was also very involved in the protest movement. So at the same time as being a government bureaucrat, he was an activist, so it got him kicked out of government quite a few times, calling the Premier of Western Australia racist. You're not allowed to do that if you're a bureaucrat. You're not allowed to sort of smash down the gates of Brisbane Parliament if you're a bureaucrat. It's unusual behaviour. So he walked this very fine line, but he always knew that he was an Indigenous person first, and that's where his allegiance was to his people, and so he was a good kicker down of doors. But he worked within the system for change. That was he went to university. He's one of the first Indigenous people to go to university. He wanted that education so he could not use the system, but change the system from within, and he spent his life doing that.
So you've got quite an amazing political pedigree. Has that affected you?
I've learnt the power of leadership, that you can change the world, but I've also learnt the value of being a good follower. And in fact, I feel like I'm a good follower, because someone needs someone to drive them to get them somewhere. Someone needs someone to type the minutes. Someone needs someone to make the endless cups of tea for the meetings. And so I spent my life doing that, making the cups of teas, getting the food organised, jumpers and the clothes for the ladies. And, someone needs to be there doing that. And in terms of constitutional recognition for our people, I feel like I'm walking in the footsteps of those people, because they tried to set up advisory bodies in the 1970s. My dad was involved in the establishment of the first one, which was called the Council, now I'm going to forget it, the National Aboriginal Consultative Council, and that was set up in 1973 by Gough Whitlam. Lasted 5 years. New government came in, they killed it. Then they set up a new one. The new government set up another one. Then they killed that, and then we had nothing, and then we had another one. In my lifetime, we've had 5 versions of bodies to give advice to government, and that's why this year we're asking for those organisations to be made permanent,
recognised, and they can't be abolished, and they can't. Yeah, that's right.
They can be changed, but there must always be one. So anyway, we can get into that. But
yes.
So I feel like I'm just part of a river. Of a lot
you
of
are
people
indeed,
have been
a lot
in
of
it,
history,
and we're all trying to get a better outcome for our people and the nation.
You've got the history of your father there, and all those evolving organisations. So you're a person that's seen what's happened over the years, and you really have credence to speak on the issue and credibility. What is it going to do for the Aboriginal people on the ground? What do you believe voting the yes will do?
I wanted to have the opportunity to talk to this community, which is why I'm really honoured to be here at this radio station, to have this space, because I appreciate that, there's not a lot of spaces for us to talk about this. But I did want to talk to the progressive, what we call the progressive no. You've had a bit of the no and yes case from the more traditional conservative versus progressive, but we haven't really talked about the progressive no, and knowing that there's a big Indigenous community up here and there's a lot of people who support the Indigenous community. I wouldn't mind unpacking that, just to talk about that. But in terms of what it will do, it's not a silver bullet. We have to be clear about that. But what it does, I think, importantly, it does 2 things. The first thing it does, and this is in the constitutional amendment that everyone can read, it's available. The first thing it does is recognises the profound presence of First People across this continent over deep time. Now, 65,000 years is hugely significant, and it is one of the foundation. It is the foundation of this country. But that is not recognised, and it should be, and I believe, in the most important legal document in the country, which is the Constitution. It is overdue. There was no recognition when the continent was claimed in 1770. It is overdue to state, on behalf of the nation, for the Australian people and for generations to come, that our presence here is important and a cornerstone of our identity. So that's the first part. It's recognition. That's the recognition part. But recognition has been asked for not just symbolic recognition, because people who are perhaps more conservatives just say, oh, we'll just put some words in the Constitution.
All right, so what's the exact change to the Constitution we're going to be voting on in the upcoming voice referendum? I read the booklet. All right, so it starts with this. In recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first peoples of Australia. So this is about recognition. It's about us acknowledging 65,000 years of continuous connection to Australia in our 120-year-old Constitution. Then the next bit is this. There shall be a body to be called the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice. And the word shall means there has to be a voice, no matter who's in power. So the voice is guaranteed. Can't be used as a political football. All right, so the next bit deals with what the voice can do. The Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice may make representations to the Parliament and the Executive Government of the Commonwealth on matters relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. So the voice can say things, right? They can make representations. They can give advice about their issues to government. And that's good, right? Because when we get advice, we make better decisions. And then there's this last bit that the no side don't ever want to talk about. The Parliament shall, subject to this Constitution, have power to make laws with respect to matters relating to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice, including its composition, functions, powers and procedures. In other words, Parliament are the ones who decide how the voice will work, which is pretty much standard practice, right? The Constitution is a framework, the details get filled in by the people we elect to make those decisions. And that's it. That's what we're deciding on. And just that. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
I can't think of a bigger climate change decision an Australian will ever make. It's massive.
I'm going to remember this day for the rest of my life.
Climate crackdown.
Do you have a search warrant?
Is Australia's right to protest under fire?
If we don't do something, then we are criminals.
The prospect of going to jail for 20 years is frightening.
What happened has left me shaken, fearful and distressed.
Did you cross kind of ethical lines?
Four Corners, Monday, ABC TV and ABC iView.
I never set foot on the property of Woodside CEO, Meg O'Neill, but was ambushed by more than a dozen counter-terror police lying in wait for me. No one was ever in any danger because of this protest, and there was no possibility of anyone entering the house of the Woodside CEO, except for the dozen counter-terror police already inside the property. WA Police and the WA Government are doing anything they can do to stop this campaign communicating, because we're getting the message out about the Burrup hub, and we're doing a bloody good job of it. Thank you.
That was the voice of Matilda Lane Rose standing outside the court in WA when she was being charged with her actions of peacefully protesting outside the house of the CEO of Woodside, Meg O'Neill. And of course, the response from the WA police was extreme, and they have the Disrupt Burup Hub group, who are there trying to protect Australia from this toxic gas nightmare which is being proposed by Woodside, are being given the right royal runaround and giving the most vicious kind of restraint on the freedom of association and speech. So I should say we've got on the line one of the campaigners from Disrupt Burup Hub, which is Tahlia Stolanski. And she's going to talk us through the background of that story and give us the latest update. I should say this is all predicated by the Four Corners show, which is coming up on Monday, which we heard the promo for right in the lead up to that. So, Tahlia, thank you for joining Environmental as Anything today.
Hi, Sean. How are you?
Very well. And, you're coming to us all the way from WA there. I hope the weather's treating you well.
Yeah, it's beautiful here. Very warm.
Oh, good.
Very warm.
Yep, we've got a bit of a rainy day over this side of the continent. But, great to have you with us. It sounds like there's a huge, excessive response to this from the WA government. You're saying that the WA police have served the ABC with an order to hand over all footage captured by Four Corners for an investigation set to air on Monday about the crackdown on peaceful climate protest by the WA government at Woodside's behest. It's also been feared that the ABC may even comply with this order to reveal their sources in this way.
Yeah, that's right, Sean. I think, I'm not sure about the ABC complying. Can't say where that's at this stage. As far as we're aware, they have not yet complied. It's pretty outrageous. Sure.
What has look? Maybe we should rewind slightly because we are a long way. We're a continent away from you almost. We are. The Burrup hub might not be top of mind for a lot of people over this side of the country. What is the Burrup hub all about?
Yeah, the Burrup hub, I know it wouldn't be top of mind because you probably don't know much about it, but that's why we're here, I guess. We're trying to get the word out because it is Australia's largest new fossil fuel project. Actually, it's Australia's largest fossil fuel project ever, I think.
Really?
It's 6 billion tonnes of carbon, which, I think it's something like if the Burrup hub was a country, it would be the sixth largest exporter of LNG. So that gives you a bit of an idea of scale, I guess. It's massive. It's obviously very polluting in terms of carbon emissions, but it's also destroying the world's oldest and largest collection of rock art at Burup. So this place, where the Burrup hub sits, is directly on top of 50,000-year-old rock art that is just dotted everywhere on this peninsula. It's amazing when you go visit it, but the fact that they've literally built an LNG plant right there on top of it, and they're still continuing to in 2023 is pretty disgusting and something that everyone should know about.
Yeah, right. Wow, and of course, so Matilda got arrested. I've seen a little bit of the snippets of the footage, but it sounds like it was a dramatic day in the burbs. There in Perth, was it?
It was, definitely. That morning was, for me personally, it was dramatic as well. That morning, obviously, Matilda was met by about 12 counter-terror police, ambushed at Meg O'Neill's property when she was expecting to go throw some paint on the fence and lock herself to the gate. And
so paint, not a hand grenade or anything like that.
No, nothing like that. Definitely no violence, no.
Okay. Right, sorry to interrupt. Just wanted to be absolutely clear about that. The WA anti-terror police are now concerning themselves with the gardening, quality of the gardening decorations around Perth.
Correct. It's like someone coming, if you reported some graffiti happening on your fence and then 12 counter-terror police come to protect you overnight.
And what were they like? These counter-terror police? They immediately summon up dark images of men with balaclavas and automatic weapons. Is that the kind of thing we're talking about?
I guess that's probably why we use that term. I think they've only just recently stopped referring to themselves as counter-terror police. They're now called State Security Investigations Unit. But it sounds a bit more like they're just like a security team. But no, they're actually the state's investigation team that would normally be concerned with sort of terrorism and things like that. So it's I've had multiple officers from that team turn up to my house, and that day, in fact, I was raided as well. So after they went after they were at Meg O'Neill's property, a team then came to my house and requested that I return home from work and let them in, to which I was on my way, and then they ended up breaking into my house. This was the third raid I've had on my house in about 3 months, I think. So I've got 2 young kids. Thankfully, my kids weren't home at the time, and they hadn't been in the previous 2 attempts as well. But it's pretty like for Meg to be there, standing there and saying that she shouldn't feel threatened and shouldn't have people turning up to her home. It was quite, for me, that same day I was thinking, oh, well, what about the 12 counter-terror cops that turn up at my home?
Right. And can I just ask? I mean, I don't know. I'm asking without genuinely asking. What was it that they were responding to? Was there some action of yours that they thought merited these 3 raids in 3 months and coming into your home and breaking in, and etc.?
I guess, I've been known as being part of the campaign for a long time. Since the start of it, pretty much. I did an action at Parliament where I spray painted the Woodside logo onto the doors of WA Parliament. And so that was back in February. And so since then, I guess they've had, there's a whole team that sort of keep a watch of us. And so, they know that I'm involved in the campaign itself, and so they try and get as many of us as they can every time there's an action, and they give us these charges based on being co-accused, so everyone can still get, even though one person does the action, then anyone that knew about it, essentially, they can somehow bring into those charges. And then more recently, they've been trying out, the non-association orders, which they actually tried to put on me a day before Matilda's arrest, me and 2 others. But the courts didn't allow it, thankfully. But then the next day, obviously, another 6 of them, I think, or 4 of them got put on non-association orders. So, it's been quite difficult to deal with, really.
Yeah,
we're still here and we're still talking about it. So
good on you. It sounds genuinely terrifying. I mean, they sound like terrorist police that are coming in and using lawfare to try to suppress your freedom of speech and your freedom of association in standing up for a safe climate for your children.
Absolutely, and I think Disrupt Burrup Pub has always been very. We've always been very open about the fact that we are a non-violent protest group. We're not using any violent tactics. So for them to sort of preempt that there was going to be some sort of violent raid on Meg O'Neill's home is pretty outrageous. It's clearly it was clearly manufactured by their press department. And that day they sort of got their story out before we could, obviously, because we were all either locked up or having our homes raided, and then they took my 3rd phone from me, so I was out of communication devices again for a 3rd time in 3 months. So it's been quite difficult. Yeah,
it sounds very challenging. Well, as I say, look, it's good on you for persisting with with this, because the actual project we're talking about is Greenpeace says it's going to release 6.1 billion tonnes of carbon over its 12 which is equivalent to 12 years of Australians' emissions, I think it's saying, and 54 threatened species. Dredging, drilling, and seismic testing will put vulnerable marine species like whales and turtles at risk. And you say that it would be the 6th biggest exporter of fossil fuels in the world. Is that right?
Oh, sorry, the 6th largest exporter of LNG.
Yep.
In the world, and so that's based on its capacity. So if it was operating to its full capacity, that they're hoping to be operating at in 20 years or whenever it comes about. And it's worth mentioning that the project will go on for another. So they've just had a 50-year approval done for the one part of it, and so that puts it out to 2070. So they're talking about, this amount of LNG still being exported at 2070. And if you look at the data, that shows that for that to actually be a profitable situation or scenario, I guess, then we would have to be in something like 3.2 degrees warming by that stage. So it's pretty disgusting when you look at those facts and figures that, what Woodside are betting on, basically. They're betting on this sort of future, and at the same time, they're putting their logo on my 5-year-old kid at the beach. you know.
Yeah, right. There's the logo's going on your 5-year-old under what auspices?
Oh, it's so ridiculous. Like, it's probably the worst example of the, you know, the corporate sponsorships that these guys try and do. So it's the nippers, WA, the West Australian nippers. I'm sure you guys have them over there. Yeah.
Surf Life
So
Saving
we have to refer to it here in WA as Woodside nippers.
Oh, my goodness.
And the kids wear the Woodside logo. It's actually on them 5 times per child on, you know, over 8,000 kids throughout the summer season. It's crazy.
That is sickening. That's really, I'm disgusted.
Yeah, and not many people. I mean, I'd say not many people. People do reckon, because I've been taking the logo off my child for the last few years, and you know, people do respond but it's kind of like become the norm in WA. It's like, Woodside's just everywhere, and it's been everywhere for so long. You know, the last 30 years, my lifetime pretty much, and they've sort of, this has been part of their strategy to, you know, ingrain themselves in the whole lifestyle and culture of WA people, so that they won't oppose them and they'd be afraid to oppose them, which is kind of what I find amongst most people at Nippers on a Sunday, is that they sort of, they'd feel a little bit intimidated to, you know, fight back against them.
Stand up against that. Well, and so I guess, I mean, I'm guessing, and I have to ask you, how far up the tree does this sponsorship culture go? I mean, how much money are Woodside contributing to the, is it to the ALP? Where are they putting their dollars to get so much purchase with the WA government?
Well, I think they contribute almost equal amounts to the Liberal and Labor Party.
Oh, yeah.
On a
such big fans of democracy.
Scale. Yeah, but I'm sure there's some sort of, you know, Meg O'Neill was very tight with our previous Premier, Mark McGowan, and he came out and said there was I think CCWA were taking our EPA to court over this Woodside thing, and he said, if they try and stop the project going ahead, essentially, they try and stop the project going ahead, I'll make sure that doesn't happen. You know, like, he's going to intervene, basically. If there was to be any sort of legal result that would stop the project going ahead. So it's they do have a very big influence on our government, and you know, it only the other day was when the police commissioner came out and sort of, you know, ordered the ABC hand over this footage, just sort of, you know, an order that just one of the orders that he's given at Woodside's behest.
Right, that's the Attorney General, did you say?
So the police commissioner.
The police commissioner, sorry, my mistake.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Okay, so the police commissioner is doing the behest of, and the Premier, and you guys are standing up against, this project, which clearly has literally no future, no matter how it pans out, whether they get permits or not. It's going to end up being a complete disaster for us all. The ABC is being ordered to hand over every bit of information they can to the terrorist police, and so that they can continue to terrorise you with it. What's next? What's next for Disrupt Burup Hub as a group, and for the Burup Hub as a project? What do you reckon is going to happen, and what do you want people to do?
Yeah, look, I think we had a great win just recently. Raylene Cooper, who is one of the traditional custodians from Warradjugga, took the NOPSEMA, so the regulatory body for offshore oil and gas projects. I can't remember the exact name, but so she took them to court and had a win and actually won. So she argued that their seismic blasting, that she hadn't been consulted properly with regard to the seismic blasting that they were about to start, and it was going to cost them a lot of money if they couldn't, and the court agreed that they couldn't start until they'd consulted properly. So, I mean, that was a bit of a surprise, a bit of a shock, because we're not used to getting many wins against Woodside over here in WA. And, that was really great news, but that doesn't stop the project. And, there's obviously a lot more work to do. For us, I think it's hard to talk about what exactly we have coming up, but I guess it's fair to say that we appreciate all of the financial donations and support that we can get, because we aren't funded by anywhere or anyone other than the public. So, we do get a lot of donations and we appreciate that support, definitely.
So you don't have any multi-billion-dollar earth-raping corporations lining up to fund your operations then?
No, unfortunately not. No, we've been lucky to have some, legal help from some very generous lawyers, but that the fact that they have us in the court so often, and there's so much going on in that regard that we're constantly going to court and many times over these things, and I guess that gets expensive too. So not even including the fines, but
It does seem like extreme overreach on Woodside's part, especially when, you guys have been going and spraying their logo on things. They seem to be pretty keen on their logo being sprayed on things, but suddenly they turn all coy about it.
That's right, and that's sort of the example I was trying to set at government at Parliament House in WA was, they're happy to throw their logo on our kids. Why doesn't the government have their logo all over them? Because we know that they're paying them, they're paying them large sums of money to be able to sort of run the show in WA.
Yep. And, of course, our very own Violet Coco, who has been based here in Lismore for some time, was one of those people, first person jailed under these repressive new police powers legislation, sprayed the Woodside logo and yellow paint on the front of the Perth Police Centre. So
that was amazing, actually, We were, so myself and another campaigner had been arrested overnight, and were detained overnight in custody. My first night in a cell, and 2 days later, she went in and spray painted that at the same place where I was held overnight.
Good on her, eh?
Felt quite nice, yeah.
So we're all going to keep our eyes open for the ABC report on Four Corners. Do you have any feeling about how that's likely to turn out in terms of telling the story? Do you have any thoughts about that?
So I think Four Corners is very well known for being very unbiased in their reporting, and if that's the case, then it should just be the facts, which, and if you are just reporting the facts, then it's hard to paint a picture that isn't favourable for us, like the corrupt nature of Woodside and our government working with police and all of that it tells its own story, and I think all you have to do is report the facts to see that. So we're expecting it to be pretty positive. I'm sure we'll end up looking like absolute idiots in parts of it, but that's all right. We don't care if we look like idiots. We just want people to see Woodside for what they're actually doing.
Yeah. Well, look, your courage and your self-sacrifice are duly noted and respected here. So thank you for sharing your story with us here in the Northern Rivers today. And I hope you'll keep me posted. You've got our email. I've put up on on the Environmental as Anything Facebook page a link to some of your materials, and
awesome.
We'll just keep us posted. Hey.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much, Sean. It was great having a chat.
Yeah, no, it's terrific. So thanks for getting us up to speed, and good luck. Strength to your arm.
Oh, thanks. See ya.
No worries, Tahlia. That was Tahlia Stolanski from Disrupt Burup Hub talking about the egregious restraint on freedom of association and speech that's being sponsored by Woodside over there as they attempt to build one of the world's worst carbon bombs. to pump billions of tons of deadly carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and destroy traditional sacred sites and generally disgrace themselves publicly whilst calling on the state government to protect them from this outrageous community that objects to their obscene actions. Anyway, thanks to her and all of those over there who are working so hard to stand up for our climate and ecologies and cultures.
Bloody. Testing 1, 2, 3. My name is Michael Caton.
Hi, I'm Kylie Kwong.
My name's Asma.
I'm Jeffrey Cummins, Rabbi at Emmanuel Synagogue.
I'm Sophia.
Thomas Mayo.
My name is Liba.
My name is Shen Jia.
I'm voting yes because
It's just a simple request.
it's a step in the right direction.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
I don't think you can be heard unless you're given a voice. No keeps us stuck.
I want to make my kids and my grandkids proud.
I think there's a lot of false information going around right now. The idea of the voice is nothing for any of us to be scared of in any way.
The way I understand it is it's just an advisory body.
Their advice is non-binding. The Parliament simply has to listen and make better policies.
We're just asking to have a say in the decisions that affect us.
It's a simple fact that 80% of Indigenous people support this.
80%?
80%. 80%. We should listen to them.
The Uluru Statement from the Heart was written by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and it presents an invitation to the rest of us. Come with us. Walk with us.
I saw a really great line today. If in doubt, find out.
There's nothing to lose and everything to gain.
I'm voting yes. I am definitely voting yes.
Vote tayo ng yes.
I'm voting yes.
Ani Matsbia Ken.
Yes.
Yes. Yama, I'm supporting the yes vote.
Just embrace it. It's so simple. Just say yes. Yes.
Authorised by Dean Parkin, Australians for Indigenous Constitutional Recognition Limited, North Sydney.
Yes. That's the poem that we were talking about earlier. But the freedom to speak, this freedom to be heard, they are essential to the maintenance of our democracy. And of course, one of those most high-profile victims of the suppression of their freedom of speech has been Julian Assange. Now, this is a local boy. He spent time in his childhood here in Lismore, and obviously brought up in Australia. But up till very recently, has had good reason to feel as though he was abandoned by Australia and left to what has ended up being almost over a decade now of confinement of various forms. Just in the last couple of weeks, there have been some glimmers of hope showing up for Julian, with more than 60 Australian MPs urging the US to let the WikiLeaks founder walk free, and a cross-party delegation going to Washington to push for Julian's freedom. That delegation included Barnaby Joyce, Labor MPs, Liberal Senator, Independent MP Monique Ryan, and Green Senators David Shoebridge and Peter Whish-Wilson. And so it's looking like Australia's bid for Julian Assange's freedom presents a formidable problem for the Joe Biden administration, according to The Conversation. And I have on the line feel very honoured and privileged to have on the line Julian's dad, John Shipton, who has been one of the leading advocates for his freedom and is going to be visiting us here in Lismore soon. John, thank you for joining Environmental as Anything today.
Thanks very much for inviting.
No, it's good to hear your voice. And so you have been involved in all of this for some time now. How do you feel about those developments I was just listing?
They're heartening and terrific, particularly in these fraught times of Australians, 88% of us saying, putting their foot down, saying we want Julian brought home, and sort of establishing a voice for Australia distinct from the United States and its focus, the focus of the United States. We showing a bit of spirit and independence. It's just terrific to see.
It is terrific to see, and spirit and independence. Those are the things that most Aussies think are hardwired into the national character. Your boy has certainly exhibited a great deal of spirited independence. What do you think led Julian to become such a fearless advocate for freedom of speech, peace, and justice?
I can't put my finger on it. Just one element. It seems to be a combination of things, but essentially, from my point of view, it's an understanding of the benefits of speaking truthfully to oneself, to one's family, and to one's nation, and to the government for the formation of policy. So my feeling is that the genius of a nation extends from its people, and without clear and factual information to build a body of knowledge, the genius of the people is constrained and will turn to frustration and sometimes apathy. So, in essence, looking from the outside, that's the understanding I have of Julian's efforts.
Do you get a chance to speak to him? I mean, where he is now, he's in Belmarsh prison, is my understanding. Do you ever get a chance to actually speak directly to him?
Yes. He's allowed, when he has the credit, a 10-minute phone call to people outside the United Kingdom, or myself, family. And I was there just 2 weeks ago and spent an hour and a half with Julian and Stella together in the Belmarsh Maximum Security Prison. I think a couple of days after we visited Julian, Stella went with Roger Woodward and Yanis Varoufakis. Roger and Yanis have been amazingly powerful supporters, particularly Roger, who's a world-renowned musician of considerable depth of humane feeling.
Well, that's good to hear he's getting that kind of support. How about when you're touring the country at the moment? I mean, did you went over to the US with that delegation, didn't you? You just come back from there?
That was Gabrielle. But so Gabrielle and I, Gabrielle's been to the United States 8 times since 2022, and I've been 6 times, and I go again on the 28th of October. So the support is there amongst the political class, but principally amongst the people. I find, speaking to we did 8 so far, 75 events across the United States, 60 in one go and 16 in another, in 42 cities in the 60 events and 16 cities in the 16 events.
Right.
They treasure their First Amendment and their Bill of Rights. So to give some feeling of it, they sort of breathe it in and out with the sustaining oxygen of life. That's their feeling about it. And mentioning Julian and the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment in the same conversation arouses their enthusiastic support. It's not quite the same depth of feeling as the Australians have. They have their own particular concerns, whereas we have one big concern, and that's to save the son of our soil.
Mm. And so all of this has been able to happen. This recent sort of outburst of support from the federal parliamentarians. It's reported in the conversation that it's been the trip was privately financed by the Assange campaign through having crowdfunded for that to be happening. So I guess having that wave of support here in Australia just makes so much more possible. How's that been going in your tour here of Australia?
Oh, well, I've been touring the East Coast now for 5 years, up and down with a group of supporters having meetings. I mean, it's the support, you've got to say it's magnificent, and it just simply, it doesn't fade away. I've experienced that over 5 years. I can verify that the essential character of Australians is a revulsion at the sight of injustice and a yearning for injustice. That's my personal experience. And it's, I've also travelled to 50 countries around the world, experienced similar things, but not with the same intensity of concern as the Aussies display. Also, it costs a lot of money to send a delegation over, but that was paid for by a crowdfunder by Australians, chipping in, $10 or $50, whatever they could afford. So it goes to demonstrate that people are serious, with their partners, they're hard-earned to get something up and running. They're serious.
So you've got, Australia's ambassador, Kevin Rudd, busy arranging appointments. You've got the non-government organisations, including the American Civil Liberties Union, Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, etc., and Reporters Without Borders, the Committee to Protect Journalists, and so a strengthening band behind the movement. And here you are coming to Lismore, little old Lismore, which long suffering and
when you're rattling off those names, there's 24 of the great civil society institutions in the United States, including all of those that you just mentioned, wrote as a single group, signed a letter to the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, asking that the charges be dropped. And the support, once you start looking at the support, it expands and expands. All the original partners, Le Monde, El País, The Guardian, the New York Times, and they all, and the Spiegel, the German newspaper, they all signed a letter, again in November last year, urging the charges against Julian Assange be dropped. Every single parliament, with the exception of Sweden, in the European theatre has an Assange group. Some of them, like the Greek parliament, the Assange group had 90 members. That's in a parliament of 300. Australia has got about 64, but outside of those that were willing to sign, there are others that have make silent support. So we estimate that 45% of the Australian parliamentary body support the return of Julian home to his country. These are important things, and to demonstrate to all of us that the citizenry can amalgamate on both sides of the aisle the matters of deep concern. So, for example, environment, or in the case of the yes or no voice and so on, all of those things that we can gather together under an umbrella and insist that the executive takes the instruction of Parliament and enacts it. That's what the executive is for. Yes. Sometimes I think they get over-enthusiastic about having the services of a white car to go around in, and forget that they're a servant of Parliament, and Parliament represents us. We keep on insisting that that's the best way to govern, because it gives us a bit of a chance to, how do I say, unfold the genius of the people and insist that it be embraced in policy.
Yes, and that's the great achievement that you're looking for, isn't it? To have this enfolded in the policy framework, and that's the for one thing, to have the Australian government on board, which seems to be increasingly seems to be the case. But there is a great deal of pushback from the US end, isn't there? There's complications in the with this being a US electoral year, with the presidential election coming up, and where this may not be top of mind for them, and indeed may actually play against Julian.
Well, I don't know. You know, they seem to have a lot of headaches and many interests to administer. If the White House asked the Department of Justice to review the charges against Julian as being espionage charges, embarrassing the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, and the charges were allayed and Julian returned home, there'd be one less headache for them. So, and then particularly in an election year, they have our delegation, and another delegation comes from France, and another one may come from South America, the president of Brazil, the president of Mexico, the president of Bolivia, the president of Colombia, the president of Argentina, the president of Chile. All of them, I mean, are making more difficulties for the administration by advocating that Julian Assange be returned to his family and his country. Is not a relief. So sending Julian home is a relief of considerable burdens, and would embrace popularity. I can't see any service to the administration of the United States and its soft power in continuing the persecution of Julian Assange. For me, it's what we used to call a no-brainer in the old days. But what we used to call it's the odds to nothing. Now it's called a no-brainer.
Yeah. Yes, and it is. And it does seem to defy all sense and reason to continue with this vendetta against the truth from a decade ago or more. So more than a decade ago now, of course. But So the good news for us is, as I say, you are coming to Lismore with David McBride to promote the cause of Julian and of freedom of speech in general. You and David are coming to Lismore on the 12th of October, I understand, and you're going to be appearing at the Star Court Theatre.
Yes, and an old a civil rights warrior like myself and a young, vigorous whistleblower and ex-major of the army like David, we still can gather a bit of punch together and put our arguments in an entertaining and forceful manner.
Well, I'm sure that Lismore likes those things, entertaining and forceful, discussion. So there'll be two films on the night, I understand, and which one is the Declassified, which is about the Australian government plan to imprison the Afghan whistleblower McBride for life, and his trial is due to start on the 13th of November. So that's quite urgent, and he actually has exhausted all international avenues with hopes of an investigation, and he's been met with arrests stimulating these famous raids on the ABC. So he's really set the cat amongst the pigeons, as has Julian. And of course, and then they're also playing the incident in New Baghdad, which is the WikiLeaks' most notorious publication on the Iraq War, showing the US Army one of the war crimes and the slaying of two Reuters journalists. So that's the compelling films. And then both you and David will be speaking on the night, I understand, as you say, with a forthright and entertaining discussion.
Yes, and they can ask us any question, even the difficult questions. Test you out a bit. That's a good thing.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, John, look, I appreciate you coming on to Environmental as Anything to share that with us. I hope you'll keep us posted as to the progress for the campaign, and come back and let us know what's when you've got updates.
Delighted. Thanks for being so patient.
No, good luck with it. I'm glad you got over your footy fever. That was a great relief to hear you'd survived that.
Melbourne, they just love their football.
Yeah. So you're a Pies supporter?
I like the Maggies, the black and white.
Yeah.
I used to live over there, so I like them.
Good on you. Well, we had a good day on the day, so it was good.
We just managed. Would have been terrible. Shameful to see the trophy going north to Brisbane.
I must admit, confess to some mixed feelings, since we're so close to Brisbane. But there'll be a few Brisbane supporters who might not agree with you, but that's okay. Everybody, it's all fair in love and football, isn't it?
Yes.
All right, John. Well, good luck with everything, and I'll see you when you get here to Lismore.
Thank you, and see you.
See you then. That was John Shipton, who is one of the key advocates for Julian Assange, and of course his dear old dad, his father, going around the world endlessly, it seems, tirelessly, going from city to city and speaking to everybody about the essential nature of freedom of speech for our democracy and for our civilisation. So he'll be coming to Lismore on the 12th of October. That's next Thursday, and for a screening at the Star Court Theatre. Start time at 6:30 p.m. And come along, join it in. It'll be fascinating with both David McBride, who was on the show only 2 weeks ago, talking about his whistleblower experiences and the threat to his freedom as a result, and also, of course, John talking about Julian and the showing this film, the incident in New Baghdad, which is all about that fateful day when those Reuters journalists were murdered in the streets of Baghdad by American attack helicopters in 2007, and the WikiLeaks efforts to share that with the world, which have led to Julian Assange being locked up for a decade without conviction or trial, indeed, since. So, come along.
The Uluru Statement from the Heart. We, gathered here at the 2017 National Constitutional Convention, coming from all points of the southern sky, make this statement from the heart. Our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander tribes were the first sovereign nations of the Australian continent and its adjacent islands, and possessed it under our own laws and customs. This our ancestors did according to the reckoning of our culture from the creation, according to the common law from time immemorial, and according to science more than 60,000 years ago. This sovereignty is a spiritual notion. The ancestral tie between the land, or Mother Nature, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who were born therefrom remain attached thereto and must one day return thither to be united with our ancestors. This link is the basis of the ownership of the soil, or better, of sovereignty. It has never been ceded or extinguished and coexists with the sovereignty of the Crown. How could it be otherwise? That peoples possessed a land for 60 millennia and this sacred link disappears from world history in merely the last 200 years? With substantive constitutional change and structural reform, we believe this ancient sovereignty can shine through as a fuller expression of Australia's nationhood. Proportionally, we are the most incarcerated people on the planet. We are not an innately criminal people. Our children are aliened from their families at unprecedented rates. This cannot be because we have no love for them. And our youth languish in detention in obscene numbers. They should be our hope for the future. These dimensions of our crisis tell plainly the structural nature of our problem. This is the torment of our powerlessness. We seek constitutional reforms to empower our people and take a rightful place in our own country. When we have power over our destiny, our children will flourish. They will walk in two worlds, and their culture will be a gift to their country. We call for the establishment of a First Nations voice enshrined in the Constitution. Makarrata is the culmination of our agenda, the coming together after a struggle. It captures our aspirations for a fair and truthful relationship with the people of Australia and a better future for our children based on justice and self-determination. We seek a Makarrata Commission to supervise a process of agreement making between governments and First Nations and truth-telling about our history. In 1967, we were counted. In 2017, we seek to be heard. We leave base camp and start our trek across this vast country, and we invite you to walk with us in a movement of the Australian people for a better future.
Yes, and that is the applause that you hear for Megan Davis reading the Uluru Statement from the Heart. Much maligned by racists who wish to prefer cowardice to courage, who prefer fear to hope, and we are in a moment in Australia where we can choose a future where we have a nation based in the legitimate sovereignty of 65,000 years of continuous occupation, where we walk hand in hand and beside those people who have lived here for all of that time, or we can choose to turn away from that opportunity and to squander it and instead to embrace delusions and lies. So please, vote yes. If you don't know, then find out. And vote yes for a better future for this country, for all of our people here. Anyway, it's this week. It'll be done. Anyway, another thing that's done is me for the day here on Environmental as Anything. I'm Sean O'Shannessy. I thank you for being with me today. Appreciate your company. And I hope that until we meet again, you are gentle with yourself, kind to each other, and remember that we are all in this together.